Hello and welcome to Heads Up. My name is Sean O'Shea and today I'm going to be talking to you about Microsoft licensing for schools. My Twitter ID is on the bottom there, @Sean of the North. So the first thing that you should ask yourself when anyone says they're going to talk to you about licensing is, why should you stay awake? Now, there are three main reasons why I think this is important and why you need to understand how to license your school effectively with Microsoft licensing. The first of those is around cost. So by listening to today's short podcast, hopefully I'll give you some ideas on how you can save money for your school. The second important point is that we're seeing a lot more in terms of devices and hardware going into schools. So it's important to understand how to effectively license those. Third, around compliance, which is a common ask when we speak to the senior leadership team. How do I make sure that I'm compliant with Microsoft licensing? And also, very importantly at the moment, Microsoft are ending support for XP and Office 2003 as of April 2014. Now that sounds a long way away, but it's something you need to start thinking about if you are on XP and Office 2003. And that's because we're going to be ending the security updates, the hotfixes, etc. So that means that if your school is on XP and on Office 2003, after we end support, you will not receive any of that that I've listed there, any of the security updates, etc. So your school will be at risk. So it's something you need to address. And next summer is the perfect time, particularly when our partners such as Capita and others will be ending support as well. And they produce critical applications such as SIMs, which need to be supported. So it's something you need to think about as soon as possible. Now, just to start off with, I'm going to give you a very quick 101 on Microsoft licensing. So when we're talking about volume licensing, there are two models, perpetual and subscription. Perpetual means exactly that. It's something where you buy the license and it's yours to keep. If you want a new license in the future, then you buy it again at another capital cost. Under subscription, previously there were a couple of options. So campus, which was HE and FE, so higher education and further education, and school agreement, which is where you would look at the number of desktops in your school, you would apply the unit cost to that number of desktops, and then that generates your annual fee to license with Microsoft each year. So it was a yearly subscription. Now the benefit of that was that it meant that you could always stay on the latest versions of the product, and that you had a consistent and manageable way of licensing for your school. The downside to school agreement is that it was often quite a costly and expensive model. So the good news is that we've introduced, as of March last year, 2011, the Enrollment for Education Solutions, which is a subscription licensing model option like school agreement. But the difference is that instead of counting desktops, you're counting the number of full-time employees. So you look at your school and say, how many people are working 200 hours or more per year and are a desktop user? If they're ticking both boxes, then they count. If they don't tick one of those boxes, or they don't tick either, then they're free. So for example, a member of your catering team that works 200 hours or more per year, but isn't a desktop user or isn't part of the IT infrastructure, then they'd be free, and therefore it's a very, very cost-effective model. And I'm going to show that now with a couple of examples. So firstly, if a school was looking at a big number of Microsoft licenses called the Enterprise Desktop, which licenses you for a lot of Microsoft products. If you look at the option to license that on Select, then that would be 162,000 for a school with 600 desktops. That same school may have 170 FTEs, and to license exactly the same products, that's £7,990 per year. So as you can see, it is significantly more cost effective. The second option, one that we saw a lot of over the last 12 months, was looking at school agreement and the difference between school agreement and EES. So this school, the West Hatch High School in Essex, has 500 desktops. They had a school agreement which equated to about £15,000 a year, and they looked at the exact same licensing but on EES. So exactly the same products, exactly the same rights, just using a different model. And as you can see, less than half price at £6,000 per year for everything they had before, but at half the cost. So it's a very, very cost-effective licensing model. One third point, and that's on aggregated purchasing. So if you're part of a school, group of schools that are looking to group together and see if they can get some benefits on aggregated procurement, or if you're an academy that's joining a trust, then ask your licensing partner about the benefits on aggregating your Microsoft licensing. There are cost benefits by having a high number of FTEs. If you get to 1,000 or over full-time employees, then it is a lower unit cost than 5 to 999 FTEs. So well worth looking at, and definitely speak to your licensing partner if that is applicable to you. So one of the other points that I raised at the beginning was around compliance. Now, schools are seeing a lot more activity in terms of more devices coming in, and the ratios between students and number of devices is getting better and better as we move to more towards one-to-one. Now, under other models of licensing with Microsoft, that can be quite complicated to keep track of, particularly if you're on a select model. You'd have to keep track of new devices coming in. If you're refreshing or upgrading your infrastructure, then you have to think about that on a device-by-device basis. Under EES, because you're only counting the number of FTEs, that becomes a lot simpler to manage, because you're only ever looking at the number of FTEs each year that are in your school. Regardless of if you add another 2 IT suites or anything like that, you are covered for your Microsoft licensing. So it's a very, very easy way to make sure that A, you're compliant, and B, that you can manage more devices in your school. So what are the next steps then? What do you need to be aware of? So if you're a member of the senior leadership team, or you're a deputy or head teacher, the first thing to do is speak to your IT lead in your school, find out what model you're on. If you're on an EES agreement already, so the one where they count FTEs, pat them on the back. They've done a great job. You're already in the best position. If you're not, and particularly if you're on XP or Office 2003, then speak to your licensing partner and find out what your options are. And I've posted the URL onto this page here. There are lots of Microsoft partners available, so you should be able to get some good advice on what you need to do. So that's it from me. That was a heads up on Microsoft licensing, and I hope you found that useful.